Are you an ambitious vet looking to accelerate your career path into an executive role? Are you someone who's finally ready to give the old school myths of resume writing, interview prep, and other outdated tactics that only leave you with a J.O.B that you do not love and leaves you undercompensated? If so, stay tuned as Kevin Kermes of Career Attraction will help you give up the BS that only slows you down and explain what it takes to land work you love with the compensation you deserve.
Set this bar for myself getting out of, I'm going to hit $100,000 a year when I first get out. And I ended up exceeding that. I don't know if it's by will or by luck, but there were two interesting things that I realized. Number one, I was looking for validation from people, particularly commanders, as I was getting out. I remember my battalion commander and my my brigade commander both laughed at me, straight up laughed at me, which pissed me off to no end at the time and just added fuel to the fire.
Today's show is brought to you by Combat Flip-Flops. If you believe in business over bullets and want to support a veteran-owned business that is driven off humanity becoming better, check out their footwear, accessories, and apparel that are manufactured in some of the dangerous places on the planet, like Colombia, Afghanistan, and Laos. And if you see anything you like the men's Coyote Flop Raiders that I got my eyes on, make sure to take advantage of being an ambitious vet and get your 25% off discount by entering promo code AMV Network. That's AMV Network at checkout to go ahead and receive that. You can check out all their gear at combatflipflops.com. Welcome to the Ambitious Vet Podcast. My name is Chris. I'm a Marine Corps combat veteran turned social entrepreneur. Here I dive into the trenches with today's most ambitious, goal-oriented, and growth-minded military veterans on the planet, with one end goal in mind, and that is to provide you the golden grenades needed to break through new levels of satisfaction, fulfillment, and success after stability is no longer a challenge to overcome. If you haven't already, Ambitious Vet, go ahead and buckle up. Grab your pen and paper, and let's go ahead and grow inside the trenches together.
It's time to get into the trenches, dig into your purpose, and fire up your life's fulfillment. The Ambitious Vet Podcast starts now.
What's going on, Ambitious Vet? Right back inside the trenches today with Kevin Kermes. Kevin is a co-CEO at Career Traction. Since 2008, the team at Career Traction has helped more than 16,000 high-performing professionals in their search to land six-figure positions they love. Their work has been featured in the Wall Street Journal, Business Insider, Inc., Fast Company, Military Times, and more. Forbes named them as one of the best websites for your career. Prior to Career Traction, Kevin built and sold two boutique search firms, consulting with Fortune 100 companies on talent acquisition, and served as an infantry officer in the U.S. Army. Kevin, man, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. Glad to be here.
It's great. It's great to have you. So, man, go ahead and fill the gaps at an introduction and let us know a little bit of an interesting fact about you.
Oh, man. Interesting fact. My parents thought when I was 6, it would make me a better soccer player by giving me tap dance lessons. That is not how it shook out for Kevin Kermes. No, I think that my path to where I am now is not unique to a lot of veterans, and you'd know better than I would from this podcast, but I left the Army loving what I did, but being infinitely clearer on what I was moving away from than what I was moving towards. It's not been a straight path. As I like to tell people, if you explain to me back then what I'm doing now, I would have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. So, it's been an interesting journey, and it's definitely been a lesson in taking the pressure off yourself, particularly coming out of a high performing environment, that you don't have to have it all figured out. You don't. Just keep moving forward with purpose, and things tend to fall into place where they're supposed to.
Yeah, no, that's great wisdom. I think a lot of us, we get out initially of the military and we just kind of overthink things.
Yeah, no. And also it's interesting. Like I got out in 99. And definitely landscape has changed for veterans transitioning since then, in a myriad of different ways, not the least of which is coming out of, endless combat deployments as a byproduct of the GWAT, right? But one of the things that is really interesting is I had set this bar for myself getting out of, I'm going to hit $100,000 a year when I first get out, and I ended up exceeding that. I don't know if it's by will or by luck, but there were two interesting things that I realized. Number one, I was looking for validation from people, particularly commanders, as I was getting out. I remember my battalion commander and my my brigade commander both laughed at me, straight up laughed at me, which pissed me off to no end at the time and just added fuel to the fire. But what was interesting is in that moment, I think I was looking for validation from people who had not done something that I was getting ready to go do. And candidly, I wasn't what I was going to go do, except for setting this monetary value around things. But the second piece to that is what I didn't realize at the time is that I was fundamentally capping my potential in that moment because I had set this bar, and the fact that I went over it, I think has more to do with luck than anything else and like confluence of events. But even with that, I had capped myself, and it's really difficult, and particularly when you have a vision, to go big with your vision, because otherwise what you're doing is you're setting the ceiling, and a lot of times it's hard to hit the ceiling. And if you set your ceiling too low, the decisions that you make are going to be commensurate with at best hitting that thing, if not below it. And that's a powerful lesson that I've got to remind myself of every day, good Lord, 20 years later.
Yeah, no, that's great. Because I think even for when I was getting prepared to leave the Marine Corps as a corporal, I had, staff and COs coming to me and just letting me know, like, hey, man, when you get out, you're going to fail. You're going to be right back 2 years. 2 years later, guaranteed. And they're just like, if you're lucky to even land a job, it's not going to give you what the Marine Corps gave you. Right. Nothing against the Marine Corps. Nothing like that. I loved the 4 years, did some great stuff. But, I think a lot of the TAPs and TAMs and even the staff and COs that are preparing, young enlisted guys like myself, and ambitious vet, maybe that, you that are listening to this as well, they set our mindset up for failure by saying, hey, just find stability, find a job, and all your worries will go away. Well, that's not necessarily happens when you got a big vision, is it?
Well, no, it doesn't. And I also, it's a good moment for like grace, compassion, and understanding that, and a reminder that 9 times out of 10, I always joke because I love to put percentages against things, and rarely are they scientific because I'm a history major, right? So math is not my specialty. But what I would say is the lion's share of the time when somebody is speaking to you, they are not speaking to you. It's a reflection of them feeling a necessity to defend their own beliefs, and many times unconscious, right? So somebody is telling you a story that maybe they need to believe themselves, or they've told themselves, or flat out they believe. It's a reflection of how they view the world. And that is not, I'm not beating up on anybody. Hell, we all do it. I do it. You do it. But remembering that statement in and of itself is not something that's necessarily directed at you as much as it's a belief that serves them. Right? No judgment. I agree. None at all.
I agree. And that's a great mindset shift, ambitious vet. So definitely take that in, log it in, and practice that mindset shift right there. So Kevin, man, also you got out as an Army infantryman and you dove right into the headhunter recruiting space. Now I get the headhunter stuff, being an Army infantryman, wanting to hunt. I totally get it. Right. Why the recruiting space, man? And what was that first few years being out of the Army? What did it look like?
Yeah, so it's interesting. One of the things that I was looking for coming out of the military was security, and how I described security at that point in time, and this is really going to date me, was my beeper not going off, at 2 a.m. and getting recalled for a myriad of different reasons, or simply getting called because somebody had gotten too drunk and decided to rappel into their window off the 4th building instead of going to ask the CQ desk for a key, right? Because they lost it. What I didn't come to realize, this is really interesting. So I went through and I worked with a headhunter who placed me, I interviewed with a number of different companies. I think I had 3 or 4 offers. And I took one with a company that, interestingly enough, was as I look back on it, most aligned with being entrepreneurial. We're going to run a recycling mill of all things, but basically I was going to get like a block of instruction for 2 weeks, and then I was going to be given a mill in Savannah, Georgia to run, which I was all pumped up about. Nothing necessarily all that sexy about recycling, but man, I get to do my own thing. I was standing in my office. My unit was out in the field. I had 3 days before they were coming to pack up all of our household goods and move us across the country. And the guy who, interestingly enough, all I can remember about it is his name was Dick. Dick called me in my office at 5 a.m. He's getting ready to go for a run, and he is on the East Coast. I was out in Fort Lewis, now JBLM. And he says, he's blah, 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 blah. And I remember saying hey, can we cut to the chase? He goes, we have to rescind our offer. So for me, a series of expletives come out of my mouth. I hang up the phone. I'd asked him, is anything going to adjust in the next 30 to 60 days, whatever my terminal leave was? And he's like, nope, I don't see it doing that. So I hung up the phone, went for a run, let off a bunch of steam, came back, and then just got after it and started picking up the phone. I am now back on the market. And what's going on out there? So my point in that is there's sometimes this belief, and it's a fascinating one to me, that by getting this quote job, we now have security, when in fact, actually you've completely outsourced your security. And this is something you need to redefine security. That's a whole other conversation in of itself. But your first priority of work, particularly in the infantry, establish security. That was a false prophet. It was a false view on what security would be. So fast forward, I get a job in a management training program with a great transportation company who had decided that they wanted to hire all junior military officers. And it was a pretty cool environment, except that by about day 3, I was like, what have I done? I am hitting my snooze alarm 5 and 6 times in the morning. I am completely uninspired to go to this job. Oh my God. I left a job that I love for this. So I'm exactly the dude that any of your NCOs are talking about. And I realized this is a time to figure out what I want to do. I just happened to stumble into headhunting, and it was nothing like what I thought it was going to be. But I came to realize I was uniquely qualified for it because it's essentially hardcore sales. And I am given a lane, I am given an objective to hit, and then just go do it. So you put those same principles we had in the military when you're on a deployment. Don't do anything immoral, illegal, or unsafe. The unsafe one, I think, is always funny. So I didn't have to deal with unsafe. Immoral, illegal, I had those lanes. Great. I know what the intent is. It's go out, find organizations that are having a difficult time finding people, match them up with the best talent in the world, get those people in there, close those deals, keep on moving. And I loved it. I loved it because I was autonomous again.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's great. And it sounds like it was very entrepreneurial like where you could grow, do what you wanted to do and all that stuff. And I think a lot of ambitious vets will really relate to wanting something like that now, since they're realizing their human capital. But, kind of walk us through what were some of the challenges and initially getting into that profession and stuff like that. And how did you overcome those?
Man, there were a few. It was walking into an environment. Well, this was an interesting one. The job prior to had kind of gotten me mentally prepared for this because I walked into an environment where it was all junior military officers. And I looked at it and treated it like I was in a battalion. And I remember one day a guy saying something to me along the lines of you realize this is not like we're in, and I think he had been in the Marines. I can't remember if it was the Marines or the guy who was in the Navy. And this is not like you're in the Army anymore. This is different. And I felt like I was being taken to school, which I did not have a very good reaction to it at all. It was not a very measured reaction, but in that moment, again, I was like, okay, this is different. So walking in as a headhunter, knowing nothing, and every day there was a steep learning curve, and it was very much like being back in the infantry again, because there were no gloves and nobody had time for it, because your boss is also in production as a salesperson, and they're just taking time out to determine, it's a basic determination of I'm going to give you a little bit more time because I believe that you can produce. and your production is not only a reflection of me, but I get a percentage of it. So, I mean, it's just down and dirty. And the second that I see that I'm putting effort against somebody who is no longer producing, you know, you're done. You're not even going to die on the vine. Just, I mean, I'm not even going to give you the time of day. So it's a different environment, and there's definitely not there wasn't the same kind of ethos of there are no bad soldiers, there are only bad leaders. No, it was all highly subjective about who was going to give you time. So had to figure it out on my own. So it forced me to be really, really resourceful and figure some things out very quickly on my own, which I enjoyed. It's, you know, I think one of the biggest things that I had to get back to is, you know, I left as a first lieutenant promotable, right? So I hadn't quite, and I'd been an XO at that point for more than 18 months, I think, because once they knew I was getting out, they just kept me in the role of XO. So I'm not going to say I was a subject matter expert as an XO, but I pretty much figured out how to do that job. That it was not mentally taxing. So now you walk into an environment, and if I go back and I'm really honest with myself, I had just left a job 6 months after getting out. So I had a lot of pressure on myself to figure it out and get it right. And one of the things that I needed to be okay with at that time was that job that I had wasn't a failure. It was, and I look at this now with even executives, 30 years experience who are pivoting and changing. You're always clear on what you're moving away from, like I said earlier, and not necessarily what you're moving towards. And not that you're giving yourself a pass, but be okay. Lean startup methodology, fail fast, figure it out. If it's not the right fit, don't stay there for 2 or 3 years. And I say this to any veteran getting out. You get out and you're in your first role, whether you serve for 4 years or guys I know who are 06s getting out, you get out and it's not the right fit, then like navigate to your next point. Don't stay on azimuth for an objective you have no desire to hit. Because if there's no purpose behind it, it's gonna eat you up. That's the big fallacy there. That's the big that's the big trap, so to speak, is continuing on with something for the belief that the sunk cost of time in the role is somehow or another going to serve you. It's not. It's not. And the older you get, it's going to eat at you in a way that you can't even begin to measure.
Yeah, and which meets us here with the audience that you're speaking to, this ambitious vet that's listening right now. That's who we're talking to.
Sure. I thought a lot about that before this conversation.
It's just like, exactly.
Because we know, I mean, let's get real. There's in the wake of 9/11, there are tons of initiatives out there to help veterans to find roles. But let's be honest, we're not all created equally. And I'm not saying this, I believe at best I was an average infantry officer, at best. And I believe that the U.S. Army gave me infinitely more than I ever gave it. But what I do know is that we're not all created equally. And when you're, any of your listeners who are putting in time on this, are putting in time to be better. They're putting all of the energy behind investing in themselves to get better. So, as a high achiever right there, you're showing one of the traits, a principal trait of a high achiever, making an investment in yourself, time, money, all the same, right? Don't beat the hell out of yourself because we work with all high performers. So I know all the traits. I get it. You don't go after things unless you believe you're a 10 out of 10. You don't like all those habits that make you so kick ass at what you do are the very same things that can hang you up. And one of them is, hey, when it's not a fit, you don't know what you don't know. You're moving away from a place where you had a ton of clarity. You're moving into something that's a little bit murky. When all of a sudden you figure out it's not a fit, kill it with mercenary cruelty, like just emotional detachment. No problem. Wasn't a fit. Let's move on and find the thing that was. But don't that continued grinding it out for the sake of it's got to look good on my resume. It's BS. It's absolute BS. That's not the thing that'll hold you up. The belief that is why you needed to stay there and you still weren't successful. That belief will not serve you when you move into the next role. So kill it quick.
This is going to piss you off. I know it did me in a few careers. But yeah, to that point, Kevin, you and Olivia have been doing a great job. I mean, you're a results-driven brand at Career Traction. You've served well over 15,000 plus high-performing professionals, and just applying them work that they love, right? And also compensation that they deserve, which I think an ambitious vet that maybe you that's listening to this is like, yeah, I want a compensation that I deserve. And, you know, the coolest thing is one of the key things I saw on your guys' website, which even I talked about, I think months ago when we talked initially, is the high achiever that you serve is exactly an ambitious vet, which is they're stuck in a job, which they're quote unquote paying the bills, right? But they're either not fulfilled, they're not feeling challenged enough, or they're being underpaid. So what's like one way as us as an ambitious vet to kind of, you know, give up just trying to pay the bills and putting food on our family's table, and also go out there and find that fulfilling and rewarding career that we all are aspiring to have, navigating the civilian world?
So something that, you know, any veteran has in common with any executive out there who's going to step into a role. I did this actually on a live coaching call with all of who was completely hung up at his head that he can't get to the next level until he gets more experience, until he gets this, until he gets that ever cascading, you know, I need more information, to which I just had this pause and with, you know, 50, 60 people on the call said, because we're on Zoom, everybody can see everybody else, show of hands, who stepped into a role that they were not qualified for and had never done before. Everybody raises their hands, right? We've all been there. So it's number one, be careful of the stories you tell yourself. The second part is you don't like where you are. Cool, I got it. Figure out where you want to go. Paint that big vision. Be vocal about that vision and start building relationships of people who can help you get clarity around that vision and subsequently become your advocates in that. Because the third piece is when you're going to, if you want to step into something that you've never done before, or you believe you've never done before. And I'll dig in on that in a second, because chances are you have done something similar to it before. It's a matter of translating. Advocacy and relationships will move the needle bigger than anything else. So you have to start playing a different game. And you need to pay very close attention to the people who support that vision and those that don't, and drop the expectation. I know that I'm sharing a lot instead of one, but these all build on themselves. Drop the expectation that family and friends need to quote support you, because that's not how they're wired, but they believe that they are wired just like this amygdala, fight or flight, to keep you safe. That's not what they're there to do. If they happen to, fantastic. But if they're not, don't misdirect anger and attention and energy on them. Focus forward on where you want to go and find advocates who can help support that.
Yeah. I had a memory pop up in my head when you were just sharing that, because I left my previous corporate career as a sales trainer, where I was sales training 2 marketing software companies in the residential real estate space. So I would train inside sales reps, and I loved my role. And I'm just giving a on the court example, right? Because an ambitious vet that may be listening to this is I'm an HR manager, or I'm a project manager, and I'm just like, man, I want to go to the next level. I want to go to an executive role. I want to find something else where I'm around a better culture or something. I hear that a lot with ambitious vets. Yep. And that was my case. Is I loved what I was doing, training, you know, young millennials that were just getting out of college and learning how to sell residential real estate agents on the phone, which is not easy. But I did not like the other leadership that was around me, and it felt like I was being limited. And my creativity and content development and stuff like that around the program that I designed was just like, So, I mean, take someone like that's like shown some traction inside of a corporation, outperformed his peers, did some great things for an organization, but this is just like, you know what? I'm not satisfied because I want to go be around better leaders. I want to actually become a leader of an organization because I think I've gotten to that point. What's the process of an example of an ambitious vet being able to do that?
Yeah, sure. No, it's a great question. So number one, and I'll go back to something I was mentioning before. Once you consider yourself as a high performer in that top 5, 3, 1%, you need to understand that everybody else's trajectory is not yours. So those people that say you got to stay in your role 3 to 5 years before you step into the next role, let's really like deconstruct that. That's largely coming from organizations, and it supports the organization's goals and objectives to have stability in roles, and you get deeper and deeper and them get more of their investment out of you. It doesn't serve you. Doesn't serve you. Once you've mastered something or you've gotten to a point of like being consciously competent of something, move on. The fact that they keep telling you need to stay there, that serves them. And oh, by the way, the company doesn't serve you. It serves the shareholders. It serves the owner. It does. And sometimes you align and other times you don't. So once you understand that, and you can kind of free yourself from the guilt, which as veterans, we also have that as well, right? Because we serve and we're like, oh man, I got to serve. It's the same reason so many people
loyalty.
Yes, too, loyalty, man. Absolutely. And it's not a matter of loyalty. You are a reframing of that is you are robbing some other organization out of your brilliance. And you can come in and you can outperform some people. And the quid pro quo is you're going to give me an opportunity. And maybe you're not going to pay me as much as you would somebody who's seasoned in this role. You're still going to pay me more than I'm getting paid now. It's not going to be unfair compensation. I'm going to learn. You're going to benefit. We're all going to kick ass together. And then you keep on moving your trajectory up that way. So that is one of the things. The other part is, and you talked about this in terms of culture, and I think that culture is really important. Culture is something that's ever evolving in terms of what you want, particularly if you're listening to a podcast like this, you're listening to other podcasts where you're constantly reflecting inward, doing that personal development to figure out how do I get 1% better every single day. It's a mantra we have inside our organization. Everybody commits on a daily basis to one another. I commit to getting 1% better, which leads to mastery, which leads to certainty. They state out where it is they're focused that day, and then that's obviously supporting what they do in their lane and supporting the overall mission. So as you're doing something like that, you're going to constantly figure out that what served you yesterday may not serve you tomorrow. And, as you're framing out what you want leadership to look like, what you want a culture to look like, because it's a sum of its parts, right? It's a leadership. It's the people that you're working side by side with. It's the mission. Some of those things may be more important to you. For me, people are more important than the mission. They really are, because I think people, that's why you stay in roles. That's why you leave roles. There needs to be congruence with the mission, but I'd take great leadership and a great team and a mediocre product over stellar product and subpar team, right? My own personal bias. But as you start to look at those things, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater as you reflect, because you've got a body of work. You've got a body of work in the military, maybe before the military, then you've got post-military. And look at, where did you thrive? Maybe it was on a deployment. Maybe it was a particular mission. Maybe it's a field exercise. Maybe it's a certain role you were in. And dissect those things and why. So you don't need to have the perfect role, but you can start patchwork quilting together the things and the values that are really important to you, and then speak to those. Be those values on a constant basis. Because we both know, right? And I think the lion's share of people listening to this know this too, that you're basically mirroring what you're seeing out there. We look for people to not speak to, but exemplify the same values that we hold true to ourselves. And that's when you know, hey, here's somebody I want to go spend more time with. Here's somebody that seems like one of my people. Here's somebody who shares some of the same things that are important to me. And that, going back to what I was saying earlier, is how you start to lay the groundwork around, creating advocates, creating other people that can carry your message and what's important to you forward, because it's not about what you want. It's about other people having, it's the Maya Angelou quote, which I love. People forget what you say, forget what you do. They do not forget how you make them feel. Focus on that. Focus on moving that emotional needle with people.
Yeah, that's good. I love that. And that speaks to the emotional intelligence aspect of it too, around, no matter what size of the deal you're trying to close, Ambitious Vet, if you're trying to close your next major job offer, if you're in a current sales role and you're trying to close that next big deal to keep the food on the plate for your family during these COVID times, always remember that it's a people-driven business, right? If you're chasing the money, sometimes that money will elude you. But if you focus on people knowing that people are behind that. You focus on how to connect with them deeply, and make conversations out of that, make decisions out of that. Right. That's whenever you start pushing the needle forward. So that's some great stuff. So Kevin, man, I want to dive more into career traction. I know that you guys are literally accelerating leaders into executive roles, which a lot of ambitious vets that are inside of our network, maybe you ambitious vet, are really interested in being like, okay, I've been a mid-level manager for a long time. I've been a director inside the transportation industry. I've been a director at whatever industry you've been in. You may be furloughed or whatever. How do I accelerate into an executive role? I've got the human capital. I have the experience, right? How is career traction doing that? And in a progressive way? Because, us veterans, we always hear the interview prep, resume writing, the old school way of doing things. But what's the new way that career traction is doing to accelerate us into executive roles?
So I think, to borrow from Stephen Covey, seek to understand, to do this with every single person that you're connecting with, because you never know where an advocate comes up. You never know where a need is going to come up. And going back to that Maya Angelou quote I shared a minute ago, the best way for people to remember you is to remember how they felt afterwards. So you're in a role now, or you're for another role, whether you're in your organization and trying to figure out how to move up, or you're meeting other people, what's important to them? Without fail, and I say this even with sales executives who we work with, the VPs of sales who have 30 plus years experience, they'll say, I'm really great at doing this for, product, service, and solution that I've represented, but I'm having a difficult time doing it for myself. I've reached out to 30, 50, 100 people, and I can't get any of them to call me back. And the first question I will ask them is, so in that conversation, if you had to sum it up, tell me what is of burning importance to that other person right now. Mm-hmm. And then you'll hear crickets. And it's crickets because the whole conversation was focused on my elevator pitch, my value proposition. So you got to know what I do well. Hey, guess what? Nobody gives a shit. Nobody gives a shit. They don't. They care about their problems. Yeah. If you want to get and keep the attention of somebody, if you want to be able to get somebody to return your call, return your text, return your email immediately, focus the conversation around them. Figure out how to be a servant leader and serve other people. Go read The Go-Giver. Go read The Go-Giver. Gives you the most basic idiot-proof blueprint to go execute against this right now. It's that simple. That resonates with you, you're going to be good to go. That is how you build a massive, because here's going back to what we were saying before in terms of other people looking for the same values and shared principles in others. You go out there, and I know there's a big, phrase, virtue signaling now, but you're fundamentally doing this. You show up being that thing. Don't go look for it in others. Be the thing. Be that beacon where people go, that's my person. Chris does exactly what I do. You operate the same way that I do. You create that space for reciprocity. You create that space for support and getting to know each other deeper around the things that matter most. That's it.
Yeah.
Honestly, like that's it. It is that simple. And as my co-CEO says, if it's simple to do, then it's simple not to do. So
so true. Yeah, that's great stuff. So what I'm hearing career traction it's kind of a mindset shift and being more proactive versus reactive to finding a fulfilling career. Right.
There's a large part of that. I think it's also, we're working, everybody we work with, because this isn't a matter of just go click on a button and sign up to work with us. We have a conversation beforehand to make sure we're the right fit for each other, right? It's one of those conversations that becomes really apparent very quickly if we're reading from the same playbook or not. Because at the heart of it is, just like any sort of performance coaching, you got to own your stuff. There has to be a level of extreme ownership. You have to understand that you are responsible for everything that happens or fails to happen. And focus on those things, be disciplined and focused on those things that are going to move the needle, which are your decisions, your beliefs, your habits, and where you're putting your energy every day. And it's no different than performance coaching for elite athletes, people coming in the special operations community, focusing on what you can control, which is you and how you show up. And the resistance or the embracing of that principle in and of itself, and then going deep on it or blowing it off, is the biggest differentiator here in terms of accelerating a career.
Yeah, no, that's great because I feel like if you come from that place versus is my resume perfect? You know, am
Who
I
cares?
prepped for an interview? You know, I just think that's a incredible better way to kind of come from that place because then you're at the effect of the HR manager who's potentially hiring you or something. So I love that philosophy around it all. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
really
funny.
good stuff.
Both those things I learned really early on as a headhunter, even though they weren't articulated that way. Number one, I never sent a hiring manager a resume and then asked them if they wanted to see somebody. And when they would say to me, and I was taught this very early on, and it was such a it was such an opportunity for differentiation. They'd say, well, send over the resume. I'm like, well, what do you want to know about Chris? I just met with him for 45 minutes.
Hmm.
You know, I'm gonna have him come over to your office in 2 days, and you're gonna sit down and talk to him. And, you know, I don't know if he's gonna be the right fit, but I am confident that you'll benefit from that conversation versus other people who are charging a 30% fee and making this person do work, right? So you think about that in that moment, it's an opportunity to separate yourself out. So the resume was irrelevant to me. The resume was a roadmap for a conversation. And then in terms of the interview, you know, you can't prepare to be yourself. So the real question here is how do we get you out of your own way to show up as you? Because everybody, I mean, for anybody listening, any ambitious vet who's done hiring, who has gone through the process of hiring somebody, and then somebody shows up the first day, and by week 2, you're like, who the hell is this person? I get people coming out of their shells. I totally get that. I get people letting their guard down. Totally understand that. But getting to the truth and asking those hard-hitting questions and really figuring out who somebody's all about, if you can create that space in an interview where you drive that forward in an authentic way about who you're going to be, you will create an experience that is vastly different than anybody else. And at the same time, start co-creating around what the real problems are that they want to solve and co-creating a vision, which, you know, this gets away from, I was having this conversation with a client earlier today, said, isn't it funny how we're defining security as getting this role, getting this higher paying job. Yet at the same time, we're showing up to the interview, hoping that, oh my God, I hope I impress them and I hope I answer all their questions right. Well, that to me sounds like appeasement, and appeasement is you've got all the power. No, you don't have all the power. You got a big effing problem right now, and I'm here to figure out if I can help you solve it. And if we see the problem the same way, and if we see the solution the same way, and I'm not coming at that from a cocky perspective, I'm coming at it from a confident perspective. I know there are a certain set of problems that I can solve. I know there are things that I'm exceptionally good at. I'm here to figure out, do you have those problems? Can I solve them? Do I want to solve them? Do we see the solution the same way? Cool. Like, think about that. That frees you up. You're having a conversation with another human who's sitting there and they sound all confident, like they've got the keys to the kingdom. But guess what? This problem doesn't get solved. They're going to get fired. Who's under pressure? They're under as much pressure as you are. They got to get that job squared away, or they're getting fired, not moved to a next duty assignment, not passed over for a promotion. They're going to lose their J.O.B. Think about that.
Yeah, that's good, man. I hear that the resume's the golden ticket inside the chocolate factory, and then you can't prepare to be yourself. So like, just walk into the door. Ambitious Fit. I have a poster behind me, which, you know, you can't see in the video here because I got the mic in my face, but it has a boxer walking to the rink and it says Showtime above him. And it's a Barbara Corcoran kind of philosophy where all you got to do is walk into the ring, walk into the door and trust yourself. And know that as long as you're over there listening to their needs, wants, and desires and what they're asking for and finding a way to articulate yourself. I know us Marines, semi intelligent, you know, you'll have a way better role than just being over here on like, what's in it for me, right? Be over there with them, but walk through that door. So,
and I don't mean to cut off, just a really key point on that is not the buzz lingo, all the corporate nuance and blah, 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 whatever the latest talk is about wheelhouse and alignment and, you know, transformation or whatever, but it's intent and people can feel that.
Yeah.
You're there to figure out where can you serve best? And maybe the service is having that conversation in that moment and helping somebody get greater clarity. Maybe it's you're the right fit for the job. I don't know. Detach from that outcome, focus on your intent, and show up to serve. And I know that every veteran knows how to do that.
Yeah, for sure. Boom. And it's a great mindset shift. So, Ambitious Vet, we're going to take a quick break to thank our sponsors, but we'll be right back as we jump into the trenches with Kevin Kermes. We'll be right back. Thanks to Audible. If you're looking for more insight, education, or knowledge around the next industry you're looking to get into, or if you're simply just looking to grab The Go-Giver, along with thousands of other audiobooks that you can listen to on demand inside your car, on a hike, or even on that good old dog walk every day. Enjoy a 30-day trial on us here at the Ambitious Vet Network by checking out www.audibletrial.com/AMV. Again, that's www.audibletrial.com/AMV. All right, Ambitious Vet, we're right back inside the trenches with Kevin Kermes, co-CEO of Career Attraction, 10 plus years of experience in headhunting and just recruiting and helping high-performing professionals just like you find the next career you love, but also the compensation that you deserve. So I'm excited to see how he sums up this entire episode in his 3 golden grenades or wisdom bombs. Kevin, man, the floor is yours. What are 3 golden grenades that you could provide any ambitious vet right now to keep them unstuck in their career?
Number 1, focus on purpose. Always get clear on your purpose, because purpose is everything. I'd say the second part is, from a communication standpoint, BCs of communication. It's not always be closing like Glengarry Glen Ross. It's attunement, buoyancy, and clarity. Be tuned in with your audience. Have a buoyant message, one that's easy for other people to carry forward, advocates to carry forward, and then clarity, something that's really simple that people don't have to over-explain or spend a lot of time trying to figure out. And then I think finally, as you are thinking about purpose, as you're thinking about your vision, make it super simple for yourself and follow your gut and ask yourself the question every single day in terms of the things you're doing, things you're pursuing, conversations you're having. Does this support where you're moving forward? Hell yes or hell no? Because there are a lot of distractions out there. It's hard to get people's attention. It's hard to figure out where to put your energy. You got a ton of people, ton of talking heads and quote experts out there trying to tell you what to do. Listen to your gut, because it's gotten you this far, and it's either hell yes or it's hell no.
That's good stuff. There's a really powerful 3 golden grenades, Ambitious Vet. Go and just leverage one of those over the next week, next month, next quarter, and I promise your life's going to look way different. All right, Kevin, man. So where can an Ambitious Vet go and find out more about Career Attraction and what you guys are doing?
I would say simply go to careerattraction.com. That's our website. You can also connect with us on both Facebook. We have a Facebook page where I go live every day for about 10 minutes around 10 a.m. Eastern. And my co-CEO, Olivia Gamber, goes live on Instagram around 5 p.m. Eastern on our Career Attraction page. Best way to get to know us and figure out if we're your cup of tea or not. So we may not be, or we may very well be your favorite flavor. I don't know. Leave that up to you.
That's awesome. Well, Ambitious Vet, I encourage you to go and check out what Kevin's doing. He's an Army infantryman and a guy that's been doing a hell of a lot of great work for ambitious vets like you that's looking to accelerate your impact inside your career. Kevin, man, thanks for joining the show, brother.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. I loved it.
The Ambitious Vet is available on all popular podcast platforms. Go to vettrainingcoaching.com to subscribe, rate, and share with fellow vets.
Again, today's show is brought to you by Combat Flip-Flops. If you're an ambitious vet that's looking to have a cigar for your foot sole, as they like to say it, go visit combatflipflops.com. They have products anywhere from footwear, accessories, and apparel that's manufactured from some of the most dangerous places on the planet, like Colombia, Afghanistan, and Laos. Products start from anywhere from $7 all the way up to $60. But don't forget, if you find anything that you want, make sure to take advantage of being an ambitious vet by entering promo code AMV Network to get your 25% off coupon code. Go visit combatflipflops.com, do your part, and get that cigar for your foot sole.